Welcome to the Business Shop Podcast, where our guests speak on meeting the challenges of entrepreneurship, as well as offer tips and advice on business, marketing, technology, and more. Whether you are a newbie or a seasoned professional, this episode is for you. I am your host, Audrey Wiggins.
Let's chop it up.
Hello, Chop Squad. If you're looking to implement AI into your business and want to identify the best approaches to do so, then Frank Mendoza can offer you practical recommendations. He believes that AI should be a tool that empowers companies to grow and innovate, and he is excited to share his expertise with us today. So, Frank, welcome to the Business Shop.
Thank you so much, Audrey. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with your audience. I really do.
Knock out your competition with Altogether Marketing. We elevate your brand. Take a stance with your business name, logo, the tagline, your colors, even the fonts for your business. And then jab left with your website, jab right with core values. Back up with product experience and bring it on with you. Visit altogether.biz and let us help you create a knockout brand.
I'd like to share more about you. So Frank Mendoza, he is a highly respected and award-winning analytics leader with over 20 years of experience in strategy, customer experience, and data science. He is the founder of Catalytics, a service company that helps Fortune 500 companies like Nike, Kellogg's, Keurig Dr Pepper, and Jim Beam to use data and AI to solve their toughest business challenges. Now, Frank also holds a BS in mechanical engineering and an Executive MBA from the University of Texas at Austin. Now, Frank, you state that 2023 is the year of AI. AI is becoming more prevalent in various industries. However, many companies are still intimidated or confused by its use and capabilities. So before we get all, tech jargon about it, because of those fears, though, what are some common misconceptions that we have about AI?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak with your audience about this topic. 2023 has certainly been an amazing year from AI perspective. There's always been this hype cycle, Audrey, with regards to AI. But it's been more traditional, what's known as discriminative AI or predictive models, where you're trying to predict something like, for example, a sales target. You're trying to, predict or forecast your inventory, and you're using these models to, use to gain some pattern recognition and ultimately give you some insight to allow you to make better decisions. In November of 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT, and the world started to see and recognize the value that these new generative AI solutions could offer to businesses and individuals. These generative AI solutions are really focused on, like the word suggests, generating something, generating either text or natural language like ChatGPT or Google Bard or some of these others. Or generating images, right? Like Midjourney and DALL-E and some of the other image generating. They can even start to mimic voices, start to generate music. There's a lot of different these tools that are now really driving these generative explosion of applications that I'm sure your audience is seeing on a daily basis. Yep. The challenge you have with that, right, is really there is this deluge of applications. And like you mentioned, there's this kind of, for lack of a better word, somewhat of a paralysis analysis that says, I don't know where to get started. I don't know, which of these I should take into consideration. And the uncertainty and the fear that goes along with that is a big piece of trying to overcome to make sure that you are starting to dive into the generative AI space.
Okay. Put the generative AI aside for a second. Artificial intelligence is not new, correct? And when you're talking about analytics, I can even remember just even when I started getting into podcasting, I was doing video then and thinking about voiceovers but not using a person, looking at different software that you can use to like read your transcript or whatever. All of that's really artificial intelligence, right? Or not?
Yeah, correct. So artificial intelligence, if you will, right, is the use of data That data can be, again, text, it can be images, it can be structured data. So when you talk about structured data, think of tabular data, column, rows,
Yes,
things you would use
yes.
like in Excel or Google Sheets, those types of things. Data can be a lot of different things, right? So it requires input, and then you feed it into an algorithm, a model, if you will, and the model's job is to interpret that data, identify patterns, and then give you an output. Right. And right now, and where we are today, we have what's called artificial narrow intelligence. And what that means is it's narrowly focused. It can function and fulfill one task, and it does it very well. But it can't do general tasks, right? You can't ask it to do anything and it'd be successful. So that's where we are right now. People start to fear artificial general intelligence, where it starts to, perform like a human. It can do multiple tasks and things like that. We haven't reached that stage yet. But yes, what you're alluding to, artificial intelligence has been around for many, many decades, right? And it's had, what's called AI winters, where, the technology has not been able to take advantage of some of the algorithms that are out there. But, over the last few years, we've reached a stage where there's enough data now. The algorithms are really strong. There's enough compute power. And those things have come together to really form a really synergistic opportunity to really take advantage of AI from a lot of different perspectives.
Really, we just weren't in touch with the reality that it was here, didn't even understand that what maybe we were looking at or using was actually artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, great artificial intelligence helps you in your day-to-day make decisions, but doesn't overpower you, right? So think Google Maps, think Apple Maps, right? So those are using artificial intelligence. They're using deep neural networks to identify the best paths and take that you can take. But keep in mind that, again, it's up to you, right? You don't have to follow what the Google Maps tells you. You can make a decision. And that's one of the things I'm arguing too, is there needs to be huge human judgment taken into consideration when leveraging these tools, because ultimately the technology is not there where you want to hand over autonomy to it around all parts of your business.
I agree. What's our next step? I'll ask you to set aside Jennifer for a minute, because I just wanted us to realize is that we were already living in this age, but just at a different level. And now that it's getting closer to us, say the more common folk within business or even in our personal lives.
Yeah, I think, like I said, that this hype cycle has been around for a lot of years. Again, most of it was focused on this discriminative AI, which, again, trying to predict a recommendation engine, what Amazon or Netflix is doing in terms of, trying to determine probabilistically what item you'd like to buy or what movie you'd like to watch, or, predicting, like I said earlier, inventory forecasting or sales numbers or things like that. That's where the focus has been. But as you can imagine, it takes a lot of investment and opportunity to build out those things. And so the barrier to entry was much higher. What happened in November and all these other opportunities of these generative AI solutions is it's really lowered the barrier, Audrey.
Okay.
Really lowered the barrier to entry for people to take advantage of this stuff. And so, you and I could go sign up for a free account today and start playing with these tools and get immense value from them to help our business, whether that's, again, helping, write marketing copy, for example, or, drafting a quick website using AI, or, creating some images that I can use in my ad campaign. All those generative AI solutions historically would have required a huge investment to kind of go forward. And now, because of some of the solutions that have been afforded to us, that barrier to entry has immensely gone down.
Okay, awesome. So keep it geeky for a minute. So is that where machine learning comes in between the...
It's a great question. I think a lot of, there's a lot of confusion with these terminologies. Like you said, they're very buzzy and they're very kind of out there right now. So let's try and level set a little bit, right? So artificial intelligence, if you will, I like to describe it as a discipline. So think physics, think chemistry, think mathematics. It's a
Okay.
discipline. There's so many aspects of it that no one person or one organization really has it all figured out, right? Everything from autonomous vehicles or Google Maps or all these different things fall under this umbrella, if you will, of artificial intelligence. The subset of that is what's known as machine learning. This is where I am literally feeding it data, like we talked about,
Okay.
algorithms to identify patterns, and then offering a prediction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the subset of artificial intelligence. And the further subset of machine learning, if you will, is what's known as deep learning. And this deep learning is where you're taking advantage of neural networks. This is where you're taking advantage of weights and biases and neural networks and things like that to really get deep in terms of understanding. And in many cases, it's kind of a black box. We're not sure exactly how it's coming out to the recommendation or the prediction, but we understand it's identified patterns in the data itself. Now, deep learning requires a lot of information. It requires a lot of information to create all these nodes and layers to get to a final prediction. And a lot of these generative AI solutions where you're predicting, again, images, right? You're generating these images or you're generating natural language text. Like I said, it requires a ton of information, but it's leveraging these deep neural networks, if you will, deep learning. So then there's artificial intelligence at the highest level, discipline. Okay. Then there's machine learning, a subset of artificial intelligence, and then deep learning, a subset of even machine learning.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Kind of bring it into our businesses then. So how can we ensure that we are AI and data, our data solutions are aligned with our company's overall strategy and goals, or how should we add that into our goals and strategy?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think it's kind of where I always encourage people to start with, which is don't just use the technology because it's shiny and it's a new object, right? It's like there's a lot of that going on right now.
Yes.
It's like, oh, well, it's so cool and I see everybody else using it, so I should use it. I actually take a different approach and say, what is your business objective? What are the challenges that you're currently undergoing in your business? And then identify opportunities to see whether or not AI can help alleviate some of those challenges, right? Or help assist with some of those challenges. So really starting to recognize where AI can play a role. And so you need to be asking yourself questions around, not just should I use the technology? I would argue yes. Okay. But more importantly, where should I be using this technology? How should I be using this technology? And not the least of which, why should I be using this technology? And what I mean by that is there measurable return on investment by applying your resources, your time, and your dollars to injecting this type of technology into your business?
How do we close the gap from, say, the free account of OpenAI to something that we would spend money on in consulting?
Yeah, so I think it's a function of identifying, right, your where the best use cases are, prioritizing those use cases, and then starting to dip your toe in the water and start to run maybe MVPs or some experimentations around it, right? And I think to help your audience a little bit, many of us have kind of some virtual assistants or some we've brought somebody in. Some of the same questions you would ask when you're trying to bring someone into your organization are some of the things you should ask when investigating whether AI should be part of your business as well, which is, what are the tasks that I myself can delegate to somebody, right? What are the tasks that if I could offload myself, those responsibilities, I would be able to focus more on strategic activities or value add activities where I can really provide some value to my customers. Those are some opportunities to look at when it comes to AI. But the things that you should also consider is that task a competitive advantage for your organization? And so think about like your branding, your marketing message. That's unique. That's a competitive advantage. That's something that, AI may or may not be able to replicate. And so in those instances, those are opportunities for you to say, you know, I want to maintain the human element of that and maintain that on my side. I could augment that with AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could use AI to help me brainstorm, to help me craft first drafts on things like that. But it's not necessarily where I'm going to hand off and delegate to an AI solution.
Makes sense. And that kind of brings me to one other question is the common mistakes that as marketers that we make when we select a MarTech or marketing technology solution with AI.
Yeah. So when looking at MarTech solutions, as you can imagine, like we talked about before, this proliferation of applications with AI built in has just exploded. And so I think it's important when you're looking at MarTech solutions with AI, you need to understand, again, what your objective is. What are you attempting to do? I think there's going to be some huge opportunities with these new generative AI solutions, Audrey, that are going to allow you to personalize at a level we have not seen before.
Wow.
You're going to have the ability to look at your customer base and begin to segment them, be able to generate marketing message that is unique to those individuals, create imagery that's unique to those individuals, and really connect with them in a way that historically it's just been too costly to do. You couldn't slice and dice your customer base and give them a unique message. So I think those are the things that you need to consider when you're looking at MarTech solutions is how does it play well with my current infrastructure? And then B, is it allowing me to really focus on the objectives that my business is going after? And at the end of the day, I think there's unfortunately going to be more to choose from here shortly than less. And so it's going to be incumbent upon business leaders to really be intentional in where they're applying these solutions for their business.
Right. Sounds like we need some like a workshop or some kind of seminar so we can really understand what it can do. And then after learning, the what's in, in the house, like, okay, so how can we benefit from, from these choices right here? For now, we won't use those. So can you give us some examples then of usage?
Yeah. So I touched on a few right now, but I think we're about to enter this phase of hyper personalization, right? Where we are going to be able to leverage these tools and iterate them quickly. I think there's going to be opportunities to really enhance the customer experience by delegating to AI some of the more traditional, if you will, lower level activities. So for example, FAQs. So historically,
that's a good one.
Yeah. I think, being able to answer that's such an easy thing nowadays to be able to feed the FAQs into a chatbot and then inject that on your website and allow your customer base to answer questions around your hours or your policies or, how do they get in touch with you? All these different things that then you can take your the resources that you were using and apply them again to more value-added, more strategic activities. So there's also some really cool use cases. Right now, these chat GPTs, these large language models, Google Bard, et cetera, Claude 2, these are large language models that are open, that have been trained on publicly available information. As you can imagine, Audrey, there's a lot of things in your business that you don't want to be publicly available. And so I anticipate there's going to be opportunity, and they're developing right now what you can refer to as a private GPT or a custom GPT, where you're feeding it your proprietary information, not available to the public, but just within your organization. And then now you have a virtual expert, if you will, on your business. And now your resource, your team could actually leverage, answer questions, help craft messages, those types of things. I think is an amazing use case and certainly going to show a lot of value add to people going forward.
Okay, since you said that about creating your private chat, or not chat, but your AI
Yeah,
database.
your own private GPT, if you will. Yep.
Right, GPT. So say for instance, now if we go to OpenAI and we put in, say, text from, say, our website, or maybe I grab some text from this interview to help me come up with a title. So the text that I put in there, so it holds that text. So now that's public, that information is publicly available for right now.
So
I mean, for that format.
Yeah, so think about how these large language models, I mentioned before, it takes a lot of data, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what these large language models have done is leverage publicly available data. So scrape the web, think of articles out in the web, think of images out in the web, think of all these things that they've been trained on.
Okay.
ChatGPT, in one particular instance, there's an option for you to turn it off, but basically saying anything I feed, I don't want you to train against going forward.
Okay. Is that part of the machine learning?
So machine learning is it's using these deep neural networks to get that data and again learn from it to build patterns and recognition. So so OpenAI has a function where you can turn it off. Personally, if it's really sensitive information, I wouldn't be using it. Right? I like if
exactly
it's information,
because
social security,
right, because everything is out there.
Yeah. So this is where, what I refer to as data governance or data enablement is really going to be important. I always encourage people to start experimenting, but do it with some caution. Don't just, upload, your customer addresses and private information into those solutions, because historically, before they gave you that option, yes, they were going to take all the information, feed it back into the model, and then in future iterations, train against it. And so you have to take those things in consideration when you're starting to use these. But to your point, I help organizations try and, navigate the waters, if you will, to understand when and where to take advantage of these solutions and help them describe kind of the business case behind it as well.
Okay. So what other advice do you have for us regarding AI?
Yeah, there is, like you mentioned, some fear and uncertainty associated with these. I think those folks who experiment with this and start to play with it are in a better position to take advantage of the future that awaits us. This technology is not going away. I like to tell people the wave is coming. The wave is here. Learn to ride the wave or get crushed by the wave. And so I, encourage everyone in your audience to take advantage of it. Start playing around with it. It's like I mentioned, it's a low cost barrier to entry, and so it's available. Start to take advantage of it. Now, organizations, that's for individuals. For businesses, I'd say, again, start to experiment. Offer guardrails, though. Encourage your team. Here's how you should and should not be using this technology. And then when you're applying it inside your organization, do it with intention. So make sure that you're not just doing it because it's, the shiny object syndrome, right? You're really saying, this is the business challenge that I have in front of me, and this is where AI could potentially play a role in helping me achieve my goals at the long term.
Frank, we talked a lot about the advantages and some of the exciting things that AI, generative AI, can do for us as business owners and individuals as far as that goes. But what are some of the challenges and that are talked about in the industry that we should be aware of, but not really fear it?
No, it's a great question, Audrey. I think the reality is we're still in its very infancy around this technology, right? There's still a lot of things like regulations and legislation that the technology is moving so much faster than they can keep up with it. But, as an organization, there are some limitations and challenges you need to consider. Things like bias. So I mentioned that there's tons of data being used to train this information. Well, our society, I think, has moved a long way where it would like to be, but not where it needs to be, right? And so we all can recognize that in our, in images and text and things like that, there's a lot of bias still in there. Well, when you train against that information, guess what the algorithms also have? They also have that innate bias as well. So you need to take those things into consideration. I think you also, like we discussed before, have to take into consideration privacy, what's being used, and how do you make sure that you're training the training models that are used are incenting the right behaviors from folks. So whether that be artists or copywriters or those folks, how do you make sure that, we don't stop creating as human beings with this technology?
Yes.
So I think there's a lot of challenges and limitations like that are still out there, but at the end of the day, I think we're in its infancy right now. Similar to the internet a few years ago. I'm old enough to remember the internet and the launch of that. There was a lot of fear and uncertainty associated with that. And that was moving very quickly, right? And so it's taken us a long time. There's still a lot of opportunity with the internet, right? Even 20 plus years later. So I think we're still in its infancy. This is certainly moving very quickly. But I think the opportunity lies there that this is, again, not going away anytime soon.
To take this conversation a little further or do some consulting, how can we get in touch with you then, Frank?
Yeah, Audrey, I'd love to offer anyone in your audience a free strategy session. So if I could, I'll provide you the link to find some time on my calendar. I'd love to hear about your situations and the challenges you're currently experiencing, how you're thinking about AI and how, applications that might be relevant to your business. You can also reach me at frank@catalytics.ai is my email address. And then if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, you can find me at Frank Mendoza on LinkedIn. I tend to share tips and tricks and techniques to implement some of these AI and data analytics strategies for organizations, and I'd be happy to connect with you there as well.
Awesome. So we've got that frank@catalytics.ai, and to definitely to connect with you on LinkedIn. And that's a good place to start, so we can get our consultations going and see where we need to go from here. Because I think this is real important, because at first we started, this year in 23, like you talked about, the chat GPT, and then all of a sudden here comes Dolly, and then there's Midjourney. So, it's going to be 3 more.
Exactly. It's not going to stop. For me, it's fun, it's interesting, but I certainly recognize that there's some intimidation factor that goes along with this. But I think if organizations and business leaders really are intentional with how they use this, they don't get swept up into the hype around this, I think they're going to be able to demonstrate to their business some positive results around this, and then that leads to further investment in these technologies.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Frank. I really appreciate you spending your time with us. This is a great topic, very timely, and I look forward to following you and learning more from you. Contact Frank at Catalytics.ai. Get on his calendar and connect with him. Start following him on LinkedIn and see how you can grow your business using AI.
Audrey, thank you so much for having me again. It's a great pleasure to be here with you, and all the best to you.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you for listening to The Business Chop. We hope that you were able to glean valuable information from our guest and that you will download and share this podcast. Your rating and review is much appreciated. To go deeper with our guests, please visit their website and social channels. To learn more about us, please visit businesschop.info or altogether.biz, where we will help you expand your brand.